Hi, darling. Hi, is it on? Is it my phone? No? Is it on? Yes, it's on now. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Fecal Matter Uncensored. Do you want to introduce yourselves first?
Anything, yeah.
And then we can go into the details.
My name is Hannah Rose.
I'm Stephen Raj.
And we're the duo behind Fecal Matter.
Yay! Just for anybody who doesn't know who you are and what you do you want to maybe go into a bit more in depth about what that is?
Fecal Matter really is a platform we created to be uncensored. And, coming from a technical background in fashion, it was really a place where we felt, suppressed and wasn't allowed to be creative in the space. So Fecal Matter is really an explosion of our thoughts and ideas on society and a safe space for us to create.
So, technically we're designers, we have our own brand, and we also make music and DJ, and we do a lot of multidisciplinary things within our platform, but our goal and our focus is really to examine the human life, to be honest, and try to understand it and also challenge it. So yeah.
Fab. Well, for those of you who don't know as well, I collaborate a lot with Steve and Hannah. They're my very good friends, so this is an honor and a privilege to be sharing the stage with them.
Feeling is mutual.
And but also I think it gives us, because we're friends, we know each other. I know you did a lot of panels recently all over the world, in Russia and in New York. That's been kind of very one-sided, but we can have like a nice friendly chat in front of everyone. How did we meet?
I was trying to think about that today, actually.
I discovered Lewis on Facebook a long time ago, I think, and it was, remember that video you did?
Which one?
It was the one where you had like the Juicy Couture sweatsuit.
That sounds like
and
me.
you were like moaning in the street or something. And I remember I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And since I remember I sent you a friend request, and then I messaged you, and then we basically told you that we were coming to London, and then we
It was Hayat who put us in contact.
I was going to say hi,
Yeah. We have a mutual friend from when Steve and Hannah were living in Paris, where they were like, these are two perfect people, you're cut from the same cloth, you'll get on so well. And we just kept missing each other over a couple of years, and then suddenly we met and we clicked, and it's kind of paved the way for a collaborative as well as a really close personal friendship. But I think, how did Fecal Matter start? Because you've been doing it for 4.5 years now, is that correct?
It's almost 6 years.
6 years now, I think.
I guess it's kind of like a long journey to get here. Personally, for me, when I was 14, I really used fashion as an escape from a turbulent home life, and it was really a safe place for me to look to for inspiration and beauty and fantasy. But I kind of got jaded by the glamour of it, and as a 14-year-old, I started to research behind what was happening in the industry in terms of child labor, in terms of the lack of diversity, in terms of the environmental issues that were happening. I mean, we all have to remember fashion is the second most polluting industry in the world. So for me, that was something I felt betrayed by fashion. It really hurt me as a 14-year-old. So I stopped buying from all companies that used child labor or weren't having environmental goals in their business structure. And then meeting Stephen, sorry, this corset is so tight. No, it's all right, darling. It's all about the fantasy. Really meeting Stephen in design school in Montreal, Canada, enabled me to push that message even further and be even more free in my expression.
Yeah, for me it was, this world that I think that we all feel so comfortable in, which could be like the underground or the artistic realm or whatever. For me, in my background, it was definitely not something my family wanted me to integrate in or even know. So I felt like my whole childhood I was kind of like kept away from a lot of the things that I was naturally gravitating to, but I wasn't allowed to do it. So for me, when I decided I wanted to pursue being a designer, it was kind of also the ending of me, following the rules of my parents and my environment, which naturally also kind of ended a lot of relationships that I had and kind of made me, isolated from that whole situation. So for me, it was really like a very difficult journey to even just want to be a designer. So when I actually did do it and I started to really learn more about pattern making and sewing and all that, it was like a dream come true. And then that's when I kind of like drifted away. And I think I got really lazy and really kind of, unmotivated, because studying academically something that you really love sometimes could really destroy the passion, I guess. So for me, it was really hard. But until I met Hannah, it was when I realized that there was a future for both of us together, and that future, we can make it whatever we wanted it to be. So that's, I think, what motivated me and what enabled both of us to also start expressing ourselves. Because it was really when we met each other that we gave each other the courage to dress up and transform and change the way we looked. And also it enabled us to, well, for me at least, I mean for you too, but it enabled us to also open up about all of the things that we were afraid to tell, our environment and our peers. So whether it was like thinking of like you being obsessed with like peeling skin and like all these like weird things that we were actually feeling so scared to even talk about, we were able to talk about it with each other. And I think that's really where Fecal Matter started. It was really a conversation between a lot of hate that we had within the industry and a lot of anger that we had, because we share the same values and opinions on child labor and kind of, the beauty standards within the industry and all of that. So for us, it was a lot of passion that was, honestly, it was really angry. We were really angry about it. But then it was when we met each other, I think, that we were able to like turn that anger into something positive and create from that.
So back to what the Fecal Matter is and the relationship between the two of you, like, how do you describe it? Like, I think a lot of people don't actually know, but you're both, like, you're in a relationship together as well. But it goes much more beyond that. Is there an element of like Hannah being your muse, or is it more of a 50-50 collaboration, or is there something else completely different I'm missing?
I think it's kind of a mix of everything. We both have really strong opinions, and I feel like when we create, it's like an argument most of the time, because Steven will say something and I'll be like, that's not happening. And I'll say something and he'll say, that's not happening. So we kind of have this love-hate relationship towards each other. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, I think that we both come from such opposite backgrounds. Like, obviously Hannah's white, I'm a person of color, and everything I've gone through in my background, my family, and all the things I didn't have and all the disadvantages. Whereas with you went to a private school and it was a whole different environment. And so it naturally, I think we kind of clashed in the beginning. But then it was actually when we realized how much we have in common that really started, I think, the 50-50 thing that is really with us, because it's like, for example, one day I'll be the one that comes up with an idea of something to wear, and then Hannah will be the one that makes it and sews it and creates it. And then, one day it'll be the opposite with our online shop, with Instagram, with everything. It's really, really, it really is a collaboration. And that's really why we don't do a lot of collaborations with other people, because this is a collaboration and it's so draining. It's so draining sometimes, and it becomes so difficult to even get to point B, you know what I mean? To even be like, even today, like there was so much that went on in terms of like what became what we look like today or whatever, what we're doing. So for us, it's really been kind of that. I think it's been really a argument, conversation, and stuff like that. But overall, I would say that it is really like, Hannah is my muse, because I think that, I love her so much and I respect her so much, and I I crave to be around her so much. So in that element, she's a muse, but then in the same element, you feel the same way with me. So it's like, it's weird.
I mean, it is what it is. It's fecal matter.
Yeah.
Well, you touched on Instagram there, and I think social media has been a big part of your success. Like, you managed to travel the world and do these things. How important has it been for you to curate your Instagram almost as an online gallery? And how has that helped your work and practice and spreading your message?
You have to remember, both of us are from Montreal, Canada, where we have no fashion week, we have no fashion shows that happen, there's no big designers, there's no big magazines, there's nowhere to intern that's of any relevance. There's no amazing schools like Central St. Martin's or Parsons, there's none of that. So for us to be able to get our designs out there, to get our vision out there, we actually had no other choice. There was really nothing we could do. So Instagram was a huge contribution to our success because we were able to get our message out and connect with people around the world that felt the same way. And it wasn't concentrated in where we were born or where we grew up. So that was such a blessing.
I also think that for us, it was really a way to, I guess, share the issues that we were going through in life, whether it was dressing up and getting harassed and going through things that are really difficult. And most people, obviously, they go through it alone. But with us, we were sharing it on social media. So it was kind of this really amazing environment that we were a part of and that we're still a part of, where we can kind of connect with people that feel or go through the same thing that we're going through. So for us, it was really kind of, on one part, because I understand for a lot of artists, and I think for a lot of companies also, Instagram represents kind of their resume, or it represents, like, they just show the best part, or they show the part that is the final product. Whereas with us, I think with Instagram stories really changed a lot of that with us, because we were able to document our real life, and we were able to be honest and share kind of the process, share different elements of what was actually going on in our life, which was actually even more relevant than the images that we were creating, you know, kind of like, you know, what I go through with my mom or with my environment or whatever, or just us coming to different airports and the shit that we have to go through. Like, those things actually, I find people connect with that way more, and that has nothing to do with art gallery space or even art in general. So for us, it's like, that's been, I think, the most important part. And that's also, I think, the reason for our, I would say, success on social media, is because I think we are so vulnerable. And I think that that is something that people really connect with. And I think people see through kind of, you know, when you see companies and they try to be vulnerable or whatever, versus with me and Hannah, it's like we sew every single thing ourselves. We create every single item that we ship to every single client. And I think people really, really connect with that, and versus kind of the superficial side. But on the other hand, I think our imagery is a big part of it. And I think that the images that we create, for us, it's like every Instagram post represents kind of like an editorial magazine moment for us. So we create these like concepts that honestly, sometimes they take a long time. Sometimes even like half a year, we had this idea in mind, and then we finally create it, and then we share it on social media, which most people, they would, you know, present it to a collection, or they would, you know, wait for a magazine. So it's in print, so it's solid. Whereas with us, it's like, we do put a lot of our best work, I would say, on Instagram, and for our Instagram. And I think the benefit of that is that even though sometimes it gets disposable, if it doesn't get disposable and people do connect with it after it's the one day after or whatever, it actually means that it really is something that's, you know, valid and important. So yeah.
Sorry, I have something to add. I think also with social media, in terms of us being designers, you know, a catwalk only happens every 6 months. For us, the catwalk is every day. So it's important to show that, and it's important to show your growth as a human being. And Instagram is a great platform to be able to do that, especially for us. Sorry to cut you.
No, definitely. No, I was going to add, was there a bit of your thing you meeting 6 years ago? Like, was Instagram the first thing that you were working on together as a project? Or was it more of a calculated, almost business move? Or was it just like,
I mean, me and Steven hated each other at first, I have to be totally honest with you. Like, when we met, I had long, like, blonde Barbie hair. You had hair too, girl. And Steven was always in, like, full Yoji looks. I was, like, a Burberry. Like, it was just a disaster, you know, and there was nothing to connect on. When we were in class with each other, there was nothing to make me want to talk to Steven, and there was nothing to make you want to talk to me. But for some reason, one day at the sewing machine, Steven came up and asked me if I did drugs before. knowing the answer was no, because of my, I guess, very preppy, like, no body showing at all type of look. But from there, that's when we started talking about how we felt about the industry. So the first thing was not Instagram. It was really about loving ourselves. It was about discovering who we were and how to build on each other's creative minds to come to this look today. And before Instagram, we were already bald. We were already expressing ourselves in the metro in Montreal and doing our own thing and trying to, you know, to do our own vision. So I lost my train of thought.
We did a lot of, like, physical projects, like real life projects in Montreal, and it was, I guess, the reason why we went on social media in general, and why we have an online shop, and why we still focus on having more virtual spaces to share our work, is really because there's a wider reach and there's more types of diverse people than our local environment. Because locally, I mean, me and Hannah, if we were depending on Montreal, we'd be broke by now, and we would, you know, we wouldn't be able to be anything.
To work at McDonald's.
Yeah.
It was like that. It's at that
it was really like that. So for us, it was actually like a survival instinct to be like, actually, let's do this on social media. Let's be able to connect with people all over the world, and let's sell to people our designs that maybe people locally they found were too disturbing or too ugly or whatever the reason was. And let's try to actually find people all over the world to connect with. So it's much easier to connect with the world than with a city, if that makes any sense. You have more odds of finding somebody that likes what you do than if it's locally. So I think that's why.
Do you not have a community of queers and freaks in Montreal?
It was us, but I mean, on one hand, there was a community, but I think that, I mean, you know, with, you know, kind of being so into the alien side of our aesthetic and being into kind of different, you know, I mean, for us, we do find, you know, beauty within things that are ugly. So I think that our message and what we were doing visually was so difficult for people to understand. We're talking about like 6 years ago, you know what I mean? Like the trend of fashion and beauty was totally different. People did not understand what we looked like. People also didn't understand the name. They didn't understand how...
Like people wouldn't even publish it. And this is also internationally too. Nobody would publish the name. So nobody would even publish our workout. So again, Instagram was really our only option. I don't know where I cut you off. I'm sorry.
But I mean, what I was trying to say, and I'm sure a lot of people do feel this, and I'm sure a lot of people do connect with this, even within your family or, you know, the environments that you're supposed to get along with, that you're supposed to be a part of, that maybe, I don't know, because you're gay and someone else is gay, it doesn't mean that naturally you get along. You know what I mean? So for us, it was kind of that situation where I think to be honest, we were just so different, and I think that it was really hard for people to adapt to where we were going, because like our conversations, our work was just like so complex. And at that time in Montreal, people were like, the thing is in Montreal, and this is applicable to a lot of cities, and especially in Canada, people tend to be followers and leaders. So they'll look at people on Instagram in London, and then they'll kind of take that and they'll apply that into their own lives, and they'll subverse it or whatever. But it's very rare to see somebody in Canada who like does something that is offbeat and different. And that's why I think, to be honest, we are, I guess, a little bit of an inspiration for a lot of the Canadian kind of people, because there's not a lot of people who stand out in Canada. There's not a lot of people within the industry that are Canadian, that are doing things that are different, you know. So I think that that's why it was difficult for us to connect with the community. But we did create our own community. There was a few people that we really connect with, and we had each other. So that was enough.
Fun. And you mentioned the alien aesthetic. That's obviously become a massive trend within fashion, and a lot of other people are co-opting that look and jumping on the bandwagon. And it was very much you guys pioneered that aesthetic. How did it initially come about?
Well, for us, it was really, to be honest, when we were studying, we were learning about human nature, and we were really, this was like the first time me and Hannah, we were like learning about these things, like philosophy and all of that. And so much within human nature that we really were obsessed with and trying to understand it and trying to understand ourselves. And to be honest, also where we were in life, we really didn't feel like we belonged. So we really felt like, I guess, we felt like aliens, to be honest. Even though maybe physically we didn't look like ones, but that message behind what an alien represents within humanity is that they're different, they're unknown. So for us, that's exactly what we felt like. And that's exactly why we pursued kind of this obsession that we had. And that's why we shaved our heads, we shaved our eyebrows, I guess more to look like the stereotypical visual side of what an alien would look like, the eye contacts with all of that, the body modification, the mutation, and all of that. But I think that it was kind of now that we kind of realized. Are you okay?
Yeah, I don't know why I'm like shaking like this.
But I don't know, that's why we got into it.
Yeah, I guess just when you think about the word alien, it doesn't have to mean extraterrestrial. It doesn't have to mean from outer space. It means the rejected, the other. So for us, going into it was more about the word alien, the feeling of being an alien, not the look of it. And of course, that gets transformed and all that. I think it was actually ID magazine who came out with an article and said alien glamour. And I always thought that was really funny. I was like, alien glamour, what is that? So yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that was fine. You answered it perfectly. So obviously a lot of people have co-opted the look as part of that trend and fad. That must have come to pros and cons. What are some of the pros?
Well, I think the pros of that is similar to David Bowie and Lee Bowery. We look to these people as idols, as icons, as people that trailblaze, people who make us feel safe in our community, in our world, which makes us feel so down and depressed all the time. And we use these inspirations as something to find our own selves. So for me, seeing somebody look at what we do or what other people do and find inspiration to be able to love themselves is you can't, there's nothing better than that for somebody to be able to love themselves through your work or through somebody else's work. So but of course there's also a lot of cons from that. When you have something that becomes a global trend, it's so easy for it to get misguided and diluted from the original message. And what we do is something so pure and honest. And sometimes when it becomes a global trend, it becomes disposable. It becomes nothing. It becomes about aliens instead of, a feeling from the inside that all of us here can share. And sometimes as an individual seeing, a room full of people that look like you go home and look in the mirror and say, who am I? Who am I really? So there are cons to that. But I focus on the positives.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, for us, the most important thing with this look is to kind of challenge society and to raise questions about what it means to be human, what it means to be normal, what it means to fit in, what it means to be natural even. You know what I mean? Because for us, we're so obsessed with like transhumanism and like where is humanity going and kind of, different consequences to the environments of technology and nature and all that, how that affect us as humans. And that's where, for us, it's been such a research, you know what I mean? It's been such a passion to learn and to discover and to kind of really, just like experiment. And I find that the biggest thing that we are upset with within the trends or whatever, whether designers kind of take it or whatever, or companies or whatever. For us, I think it's just sad that there's no message behind it. But then that's exactly why we keep going, because we realize that if we're not a part of it and we don't stop, I mean, if we stop, maybe there won't be the soul behind it, behind this aesthetic or the message. So for us, it's really important actually to even create work that is even more personal, more authentic, more vulnerable, to be able to really bring something that maybe could be translated just through a filter, you know what I mean, on Instagram. But for us, it's like, this is our real life. This is why we got beat up on the street. This is why, we've been, kicked out and rejected, and why we still have issues within the industry, why they're rejecting us and all of that. So for us, it's like this thing that maybe is a trend or an aesthetic or a passing phase for so many clients or people within the fashion industry or beauty community or whatever. For us, it's this is what makes us endangered actually. So for us, it's really important to be sacred, to preserve it and to love it, and to also share it with other people, because I think, for us, it's like, even if somebody straight up copies us and, does the exact look or whatever, it's still really beautiful for us to see that there's one more person that sees this version of themselves as beautiful. And it's really beautiful to be able to connect with that. And at the end of the day, for us, what we've realized with, so much of what we've done has been considered innovative or whatever. And when something becomes innovative, you're like, that's mine, I own this. This is my signature look. This is what I own. And we've realized that we don't own anything. We don't own even our own identities, even nothing in this world we can own, not even a makeup look, not even the skin shoes, not even, me and Hannah visually, you know what I mean? Because we've seen editorials where they get a POC model and a white model, and then they make them bald and make us look exactly the same thing. And people tag us like, is that you? So we go through these things every day, but I think that the most important thing is to be able to kind of share a message that is big and broad. And if it was just me and Hannah doing it on Instagram, I don't think it would go that far. So I think that for us, seeing other people hop on or get inspired or get influenced is maybe hurtful on an individual level, but it's really powerful in terms of on a global scale. And it's really important for us to be able to see the world become more tolerant to different perspectives of beauty and identities. And it's also made us learn something really spiritual, which is that we don't own anything. So, which makes it even more fun, because now we're able to really even, maybe we'll expand into something else, and we'll grow into something else and morph into something else. And that's really inspiring and hopeful that, because we can't hold on to anything, we have to let go and fly. So that's where we're at right now.
Well said.
So we talked about you inspiring trends, but what inspires Fecal Matter?
Chad. For us, Chad really does represent someone that, if people don't know who Chad is over there. Chad is somebody that is, the message that Chad has is ageless, it's timeless, it's eternal. It's really about the passion for life, and it's about the passion for existing and being kind and being generous and being loving. And those are all really the values that we represent, and those are the values that we are really inspired by. I would say, aesthetically, we don't have that many, sources that we look to that we're like, oh my God, I'm so, in love with that. But for us, in terms of like personalities, in terms of, messages and all of these types of things, like people doing work that is really important, people doing work that is really challenging, people who are stepping outside of their comfort zones, like those are all things that we're really inspired, because that's what pushes us to even go further. And obviously McQueen has been, I think, a big influence to us, and he's really been kind of like our kind of father in a lot of ways, because it's been somebody that we looked up to, that we wanted to kind of touch on that creativity and that ability to really not give a fuck, you know what I mean? So for us, that was, I think, a big part of it. But even like meeting you, you know what I mean? Like, well, you knew us, like we were so shy before, and we're still really shy, but we were so shy, and we were actually so crippled with anxiety and fear. And, meeting someone like you that has a very, open, loving personality has been something that actually enabled us to get out of the darkness and get out of our own heads to be able to kind of have fun.
Yeah.
I just want to go through the main themes through your work and your practice. Like, obviously, you mentioned earlier on about censorship. Like, if you wanted to define censorship, what does censorship mean to both of you?
I mean, we're all really censored in this world. We're told what to wear, how to think, what to say, what music you should listen to, what's good, what's bad, from a young age. Are you all right?
Yeah.
Don't die on me.
Never, darling.
She's eternal. We're all very censored, and for us, it was so important to create this platform because it is uncensored, and being uncensored means there's no rules. And for us, that's so important, especially in a day like today, where we are so censored. Even in places like London, this is not North Korea, but at the same time, we still are censored on many levels.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's really, I guess the aspects of our work really is about challenging things. For us, it's about raising questions. So it really depends on, I think, what we're going through in terms of our own personal journeys, and we try to reflect that within our work. But I mean, for me personally, censorship really is kind of, the enemy. To be honest, censorship, I think, can really destroy everything. I think it could really stop all of this. You know what I mean? This space that we're all able to create, publicly, have a public event where you can advertise a queer gathering for individuals that are different, for people who want to learn about different things. Like, publicly being able to do that is a privilege. Because going to places like Russia, going to places like Mexico City, going to, we've traveled within our DJ sets and within our projects, and we've really realized how luxurious we all have it in terms of the privileges to just be able to do things publicly that so many people can't, you know what I mean? And that's been really kind of, I guess, what we're afraid of. If anything, we're really afraid of censorship. We're really afraid of the consequences that would have on society. And at the end of the day, there's so much censorship, obviously, in the world. And that's, I guess, what we're fighting against, is to continuously challenge kind of the authorities that kind of, I guess, dictate what we're supposed to think, do, feel, experience. And for us, that's really been the main thing, because before meeting each other, I was censored. I was fully censored. I was stopped as soon as I had feelings for guys, as soon as I had, the ideas for being a designer and all of that, I come from a Sri Lankan background and a Guyanese background, and fully religious. I was Mormon at some point, and it was a lot, and I was going through so much that I really felt there's reasons why I wanted to kill myself, is because I felt dangerous for even thinking about the things that I was thinking about. I felt like a criminal. I felt like I was wrong. And now looking back at that, realizing I was actually censoring my creativity. I was censoring my freedom. I was telling myself that me existing is wrong. And where did that come from? That came from the media. That came from, the magazines. That came from religion. That came from my family. That came from my teachers. That came from my friends at school. That came from everyone. It came from myself also, where I was censoring other people also. And I was telling people, you shouldn't do that. I became a warrior of censorship also. And that's the biggest thing that we are fighting for now. We want to be a warrior for freedom. And that's ultimately, I guess, what our work is centered around, is constantly trying to, even with Instagram, you know, it's like, even if we have a lot of likes or whatever, it doesn't mean that we own Instagram. There's people like Kylie Jenner, there's people like the Kardashians who, you know, have values and they represent something, but on another hand, they also represent the norm, and they force that sometimes on people, and people gain success because they represent the norm. So for us, it's trying to create a space where you can be successful for not being the norm and for being yourself is really important.
I was going to add that I think also with censorship, I find it really touches upon thinking critically, and that's something that, especially I find even our generation, it's so eradicated. Thinking critically is just thinking about questions and questioning things that you shouldn't normally question, and to me, that's what we always want to touch upon, is asking the questions that nobody wants you to answer, and that's so important because nobody else is going to ask them. So sometimes when I feel like giving up, I think about that, because if the questions that we ask in our work isn't asked, nobody else will. So, yeah.
Great. Do you think there's a need for censorship, though?
I mean, when I think about that, I think about, like, you know, when you watch cartoons when you're 5, like, you know, there's not going to be porn that randomly pops up in your cartoon, which is because of censorship. So there's certain things like that I guess is why censorship exists. But simultaneously, even though when I was watching cartoons after going to school, you know, there's shit going on at home that's not censored. When you go on the metro, it's not censored. Like, the human experience is not a censored thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that so much of censorship is about safety. You know what I mean? It's about creating like a safe experience for either whatever situation is, either children or, you know, even, you know, kind of filtering yourself. Example, like, you know, I'm sure we all know somebody that in a conversation they're not able to filter their thoughts, so they'll say a bunch of like stuff that might be even stupid or racist or whatever. And that side of things, I understand why censorship is actually important for people to kind of like reflect and think about things. But then I think that the way people have used censorship and the need for it within society, and they've taken advantage of it to be able to create scenarios and spaces that are actually oppressive. I think when censorship becomes oppressive, that's when I think we're not cool with that. But I do think that censorship, I mean, for us within our own work, I mean, me and Hannah, we've definitely, you know, learned a lot about censorship and a lot about, you know, the backlash that comes with that. So for us, we've also had a journey of discovering that and understanding the importance of censorship, even though we're fighting against it.
That's 5 minutes till the Q&A.
Okay, fab. We've only got 5 minutes left. Should we just rush to the end of it and summarize?
Yeah.
Let's keep them for another day. What's the future of Fecal Matter?
I mean, for us, we really want to keep growing. I think that, you know, sometimes when you become in a position where people, you know, when you have fans, you have followers, you have people that really support what you do, and it's on a big level, and, you know, you can sometimes really stop growing. You can sometimes be like, if I change a little bit, maybe they won't like me anymore. Maybe they won't support me anymore. Maybe they'll lose interest. So these things are something that me and Hannah were constantly trying to do, is grow and learn and experience new things. So for us, I think the future, hopefully we'll still be growing, and hopefully it had nothing to do with like more, you know, money or platform entry. It's more like ourselves. I hope that we don't stop growing and we don't stop, you know, thinking critically and kind of challenging ourselves even, because sometimes it's so easy to you know, get lost into trying to be stable and trying to, you know, hold on to something and hold on to your identity and hold on to what you represent, either, you know, visually or mentally, or, you know, whether it's through your platform as a brand or as a designer. You know, for us, it's really, we're constantly trying to grow. So that's, I think, a big part. But I mean, ultimately, we'd love to do movies. We'd love to, kind of create, I guess, different ways for people to, I guess, view our work more than just true fashion or true Instagram or true imagery. So movies is definitely something we're really passionate about. It's something that we would love to get into because we have a lot of stories we'd love to tell. So I think that's like future.
Fun. Sounds great. Do you have anything to add, Anna?
No, I think.
Any exciting projects coming up? You always have something fun going on.
Well, we have our next collection that we're working on. So for us, we do a lot of capsule collections. That's really how we run our business. For us, I mean, we try doing it, 2 times a year during fashion weeks or fashion settings. And for us, it just never really worked out. And it's just naturally, organically been where we do capsule collections. And because a lot of our work is through the internet, people do have shorter attention spans, which we kind of use to our benefit, because that's why we create capsule collections where we can elaborate on an idea, but we don't have to elongate it to a point where it's like a 40 look collection. We can actually talk about something that we really are passionate about and represent that through maybe 10 looks or whatever. So for us, I think that's something that we constantly do. We do perhaps capsule collections almost once a month or sometimes like twice a month. So for us, our next capsule collection is definitely something that we're really interested in. And in terms of a wider project, we are doing like kind of a bigger collection that we are planning to present in New York. So I think that's kind of the next big thing for us.
Exciting. Do you have any parting words for any young queer creators, any advice?
You have to stay true to yourself. We're all going to be in a position, all of you in this room, no matter what industry you're in or what you want to do, you're all going to be in a scenario where people are going to say, you're not going to make any money. You can't go anywhere with that. You can't publish this. La-di-da-di-da. But you really have to keep going, because if you listen to those people, that's on you. For me and for Stephen, we have to believe in ourselves. We have to keep going because nobody else will. So I give that to you guys to really know what you're doing, be passionate in it, believe in it, and don't let anybody get you down. You know what I'm saying? We all need that.
Yeah, I think for us, what we've learned through our journey is more than what's in, like for us, really, I think the most important thing is our voice. And that's why we do panels. That's why we come to talk in real life, because we've really realized that, our look is not as important as our voice. Our, ideas and all of that, yes, the final product is really important. People do connect with that, but I really do believe that your voice is something that you should really learn and understand, and don't judge it. Don't, hate it. Don't compare it to other people also. And really listen to it, and if you feel like you don't have your voice yet, or you feel like you're not confident in it, really, really try to understand it and dissect it and practice it, because that's really the most important thing. And that's what we're all blessed with, to have our own voices. And those are things that nobody can ever copy. Like your DNA, your essence, who you are on the inside is something that, no one can copy, and no one can turn that into a trend. So I would say to really focus on your voice and to really focus on what you think and your perspective, your point of view, because those are all the things that have made us successful. Those are all the things that have made us be able to inspire people and have helped us actually to inspire ourselves and really continue when things get really turbulent. So it's really our voice and our values that really have been our anchor. So I would hope that everybody really looks at that and really try to really find your voice. And if you found it, then sing as loud as you can. Really let it all out, because you have one life and you should live it. So, amen.
Thank you.
All right, Q&A time. Who's got a question? Hello, thank you so much. So yeah, you've been talking about, questioning the ethics of fashion and like child labors, etc. And in my own work, I'm aware of that, but I'm also aware of the ecological impact of what I do. And I'm constantly like buying things off Amazon and making things, and then my work is not being shown because, I don't have the platform yet, but at the same time, my work is developing a lot. So I really have this conflictual feeling where I'm like buying loads of things off Amazon, and like storing them, and it feels like a lot of waste. And then I picture myself in the future, and I'm like, what if you become famous and you suddenly like travel the world and always take the plane and stuff? Like, that's super shit. That's not what I want to do. But at the same time, I understand the power of sharing your voice and sharing your work around. So I was wondering, what was your journey in terms of like this like ecological consciousness of your work?
First of all, nobody's perfect, so you can't be too hard on yourself, but you do have to be conscious of what you're doing, and clearly you are conscious, and so same here on our end. For us, over 75% of the products we make is made with recycled material, so that's one way you can reduce your footprint. Another thing is we have a technical background in sewing, so we're able to sew the products ourselves, which obviously means no child is sewing it in Bangladesh and shipping it long distances. But at the same time, I'm in the same position as you. Sometimes I have somebody in Saudi Arabia buying something. That's a huge journey from Canada to Saudi Arabia to ship one little handbag. So there is costs of what you're doing if you're a business, same in your position. I forgot what I was going to say, sorry.
For us, I think the most important thing is to be able to be transparent as much as possible. So with all of our creations, which at the end of the day, when you're producing things yourself and you're using recycled materials, you are limited. There are limitations to that because, you're not able to produce big amounts. Like recently, for example, we had this, do you know it?
Oh, well, you can share.
But usually we do find it kind of difficult when, just, for example, recently we had this capsule collection thing at Selfridges, and it was really difficult for us, to be honest, because we had to create 100 pieces, and we only had 2 weeks to create 100 pieces, and no staff, it was just me and you, and it was difficult, and it was really grueling, and there were times where we were like, doing things that we would not normally do in terms of like, buying things and like either fabric or whatever, where normally we would like spend like 2 days sourcing for fabrics at thrift stores, or, going around or asking my mom or your family, like, oh, do you guys have anything that you don't need anymore? And like trying to integrate that into our creative process. So it takes a lot of time to be conscious. And I find that it's really difficult, but at the same time, I think if you balance things, because already you doing what you're doing is already way more advanced than what bigger companies are doing and what most designers are actually doing, so understand that there is value even if you don't feel like you're 100% doing it the right way or the best way, and be more flexible in terms of like being able to, with us, what we're learning is like, even though a lot of our pieces are one of a kind and all of that, how can we still take on opportunities that requires 100 pieces or 200 or whatever? So for us, it's kind of learning how to be flexible.
Also, I don't know how it works with what you're doing, but on our position, we make per order. So if Chad orders a jacket, it's not made. I make it the day Chad buys it. So that means I'm not buying rolls and rolls and rolls of fabric if only Chad is the only one in the world that's going to buy it, because that is a risk. Whereas most companies, they'll produce 7,000 hoodies, 40 tops, and this amount of tank tops, and but then there's no guarantee it sells. So that contributes to waste. Does that make sense? So making it per order, that might limit the amount of money I make at the end of the year, but I'm willing to make that sacrifice for the environment because, to me, there's not that much point contributing to waste when fashion is already so wasteful. So just being conscious about it, but you're already conscious, so don't worry.
Any more questions? Ooh.
You're doing that, but are you?
Somebody was taking the time.
Outrageous.
It's been a long day for you, Emily.
Congratulations on your collaboration with Selfridges. My question was, how do you operate as an extravagant avant-garde brand within the luxury fashion industry? So what are your struggles and what are your experience?
Yeah.
We stick to ourselves quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think the biggest struggle is to even be perceived as luxury, to be honest, within the fashion luxury realm, because so much of what we do can be perceived as disposable in terms of our aesthetic. It can be perceived as novelty, something that's going to go away in maybe 1 year. So much of,
only a small client base.
Only a small client base can be interested in it, and all of these things, all of these, I guess, these things are associated to a lot of what we do. So for us, it's always, I think that's the biggest challenge, is to kind of just prove that what we're doing is a value, and we put a lot of effort and love and attention to each piece and each idea, each concept. And I think that's really been, the reason why people are, supporting our work, and why we have clients that constantly support us and is the reason why we're not homeless, is because we have people that see our perspective and they see the importance and the beauty behind it, and they also see the luxury side of it. They see the technicality and the intricacy of what we're creating, whether it's the skin shoes, whether it's different pieces that we create that I think people do connect with and they see it as luxury. So I think that's
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, we have no investment. For example, a lot of the luxury companies, these people are getting millions and millions of dollars to be at that level. So to me, that's also another struggle, is, to have somebody to help you bring you to that next level is very difficult for somebody called Fecal Matter. So yeah, to be actually a part of the luxury fashion industry is very difficult. It's a very close-knit group. And, you have to think about it. If they accept somebody called Fecal Matter creating things that we create, that means Chanel, Dior, all these big companies have to change. And I don't think they want that yet. But you never know, Another thing that you should all keep in mind is that you have the power. We all have the power. We all have so much purchasing power, and we all forget because nobody wants you to know that you have purchasing power. And your dollar, your vote in elections, your your everything, it matters so much, and you can have value in where, you put your power. And that is what changes ultimately these big industries. Sorry, I can't breathe in this. But yeah, anyways. And thank you for the question, though.
Emily?
No, after you.
Maybe we have another question.
So I'm not in the fashion industry or discipline, I don't know what you call it, at all. I'm an architect, and what really resonated with me is this idea of being an alien, as you described, because I had also felt kind of the same since I was very young, being trans, growing up in Southeast Asia, but I, in a way, had eventually described it as this condition of being a refugee. So the conflict I have, because my work is about censorship, my principal work, at least, is censored back home, specifically censored back home, and in a way, I'm kind of fleeing from that condition of censorship and political persecution, let's say. So I'm in a situation where I'm struggling because the work, in a way, hasn't necessarily been published as it should be yet, but I don't know I'm really conflicted on whether to put my name out there or do it anonymously at this point, because I don't know how much of my safety I should exchange in relation to the impact that it would have. Because in a way, the kind of people, like the queer community in Brunei is completely invisible, it's completely suppressed, and there's not a single kind of person to say that it's okay. And I feel like I'm in a position to do that. But I don't know if I should.
You should. I mean, for me, you know, to be honest, a lot of my dad's side of the family, who's Sri Lankan, a lot of the most harassed I've ever been has been from my own family. So a lot of threats because I'm putting shame to the family or whatever. And to be honest, there has been points where I was really afraid and I was like, maybe I should stop, or maybe I should be less public and I should, you know, kind of tone it down in terms of what I'm sharing and how I'm revealing myself, because there's so many people that are affected by it. And what I've learned with that is that you kind of have to take the risk. If you really believe in something, you have to really take that risk, because, you know, there's so many people in the past, so many amazing figures who have trailblazed so much for all of us. So for me, it's like always really inspiring to be able to connect with those people and realize that they went through the circle of fire and they got out safe. And some of them have died. Some of them don't exist anymore because of them really chasing their dreams and also expressing their point of view that maybe their environment hated, and thought that if they killed those people, that message would not be there anymore. But you know that that message is within all of us, and that message is so important. But to be able to have visibility for all of the people from where you're coming from, to be able to see you do what you do, and to be able to connect with that, trust me, they will protect you, and that will protect you if anything. And so I believe you should do it, but be smart about it, obviously, because I think for us, it's been really a journey. It's not like we just, you know, it's not like when my family were like literally telling me that, you know, I'm an embarrassment, they want me dead and all of that. It's not like I was like, the next day I'm like gonna post a fuck you to my family on Instagram. It's like, it was really kind of, I was patient and I was understanding. It's the same thing as like coming out, it's the same thing as kind of revealing yourself in life. It's a journey. So I would say be patient, but I mean, my personal advice is to don't stop and to do it and to share yourself, and people will connect with that, and that will be something that is way more rewarding than anything else.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions?
Oh, do you turn it off each time, Emily? Hi. I just wanted to ask, I guess, I feel like sometimes when you're in an industry, like it's not the industry that's white, but somehow how when we pick a certain aesthetic or culture, they'll like try and act, like what happens basically when you think that your aesthetic is sometimes without any people's knowledge is just associated with whiteness. And I'm just wondering like how you do you personally deal with like a whitewashing of your aesthetic? And if so, like how do you deal with that? Because I find often as an artist that has a certain aesthetic that people sometimes without any knowledge or education will associate with whiteness, I find that the most difficult rather than the copying of the aesthetic, more that people assume the aesthetic is white, if that makes sense. So I guess the question is more for Stephen and wondering how you combat that whitewashing if you do face it.
Yeah, I mean, my whole life I've been either, you know, I've been rejected by my own family, you know, which supposed to be loving me, my own culture, you know, like I'm supposed to be not, you know, gender fluid. I'm not supposed to be doing all of this is wrong for so many people within my background. So for me, it's always been a challenge where it's like, for example, you know, when I was younger, a lot of my friends, like the school that I went to was a public school, and it was a really ghetto school, to be honest. And like, it was a lot of people of color. So for me, a lot of my friends were always, people of color. It was actually, to be honest, Hannah was like my first ever like white best friend and someone that I really connected. So I actually learned so much about kind of whiteness and so much about kind of the privileges and all of that. And I'm sure if people are up to date with what's going on, like, there's so many people who are doing kind of similar things as we are in terms of aesthetics, and most of them, like, they're white, you know what I mean? I may be one of the only person of color, kind of within this scene, and we've done editorials where, they shot all of us and I'm not in it for some reason. We've done projects where, like everybody gets their moment, then it's with me, the photographer just like quickly does it, and then I'm done. You know what I mean? So it has been difficult. It has been a journey, but that's why I've created, my own platform. That's why we have our own platform to share our own stories. So for us, it's really, for me at least, it's been a challenge, but I think the solution that I've realized is I have to gain power by performing and doing my own thing on my own platform and sharing my own work. And to be honest, it has worked out for us because we do have a big platform now, and it's growing every day. And a big part of it is because it's the duality of a person of color and a person who isn't. And it's about actually sharing that we can all kind of come together and see things in a way that is, really as much as it's hard to see it, but as equals. And that's ultimately for me what I want, is to, share equality as much as possible, even though I'm a person of color and I should, maybe put people down for being really racist sometimes. But for me, it's really trying to understand that and trying to navigate through it within an environment that is so whitewashed, and trying to share my light and my power as a person of color and share that, And I think it actually, to be honest, it's actually really difficult for people of color to embrace this aesthetic. I've talked with so many artists and so many people who are doing amazing work, and they don't understand why, the whole alien aesthetic, why I don't have a bindi on my forehead, or I'm not wearing saris and doing a subversive look on my traditions and my culture. And for me, I think that's really beautiful for everyone who really, kind of takes their culture and tries to, create something amazing and new and fresh about it. But for me personally, it's like, I'm not going to fake anything. Like, I never liked saris in the first place. When my mom or my sisters were wearing it, I'm not inspired by it. I'm inspired by what I'm inspired by. And I feel like I have the right to have the freedom to do so. And that's really ultimately, I think, what hopefully I'm trying to do for people of color who maybe feel the same way, that they're in environments that are kind of, where I'm a real minority. So for me, it's really important to share that. And to be honest, last thing, sometimes it has been really difficult on Instagram because people do get really racist, and people do, say some really harsh things to me or to us, and they don't realize or whatever. And it has sometimes honestly put me down, where I didn't want to showcase myself. And I was like, we'll just do more photos of Hannah or whatever. I don't want to model in this, or I don't want to be a part of it. And it's actually been when there's people of color, young people, old people, whoever, who kind of tells me that, they really love me and they really support me and they really want to see more of me, that I realize, like, I have to actually do it, even though maybe the environment doesn't want me to. So, yeah.
And on that note, it's the end of our panel. Thank you so much, Stephen and Anna.